start, isn't it? Anyway.
All right, mate.
Right.
Hello, mate.
Oh, hello, mate. How you doing? Right, anyway. Let's just, right. So, a few months ago, we started this idea of building a podcast. And as you can see on screen at the minute, you will see a clip of our very first podcast that we thought was a brilliant idea of us walking through a park and having a little chit chat of each other about the imposter syndrome, which you can go back and view episode 1 if you so wish. But what we didn't realise was, at the time, was absolutely nobody knew who this podcast was for, and absolutely nobody knows who we are. So episode 2 of the Unfinished Business podcast is exactly that. Episode 2 is who this podcast is for and who are we.
All right, buddy. How you doing? You had a good week?
Yeah, it's been all right. It's been busy, as always. But yeah, you know, it's just one of those things. But, you know, learning how to do a new podcast is, you know,
It's
a
a
bit
learning
mind-boggling. It's just a tad. Yeah, so...
There we are.
at
At least we're real. We're real about it, mate. So,
yeah,
you know,
there's
everyone watching is going to get warts and all.
Yeah.
As you can probably see.
Yeah, this is like a polished turd. But anyway, talk to me, Goose. What's
mate.
episode 2?
Right, episode 2 is who is this for? That's what we're going to touch on first of all. And then we'll obviously go through for everyone about our backgrounds and why we think we can help people. So there's 2 real areas of people that we think we can talk to, we can help with on this, as we've discussed, which is, from my side, it's helping people who are in the corporate world, who are ex-corporate, who may be in a corporate job and they feel that they're not listened to, or they're not valued, or they're taken advantage of, and they're suddenly waking up to that. All of these people, by the way, have got 15 plus years of experience. Yeah, we're not talking about beginners, we're talking about Gen Xers, really. People who maybe have just been made redundant and they don't know what to do, because let's face it, aging out there is a real thing. Once you get to, you're not quite here yet, mate, but once you get to 50, there is a massive change in the job market. I don't care what anyone says, where when you're applying for jobs, you're not a cultural fit. And basically what they're saying is you're too old. Yeah. And that's something I've found since COVID, where my corporate jobs came to an end. And you know, I've pivoted and gone into other things, which we'll talk about later. Mm-hmm. But certainly ageism is definitely a thing that people who are Gen X are experiencing out there. So this is for them as well. It's also for people who are maybe sitting in a job, they're unfulfilled, they're not earning enough money, they're worried about AI coming along and maybe taking over their roles, which is a real thing at the moment. Or is it? It's up when you listen to things out there, who knows what's going on with AI? It's changing all the time. Mm-hmm. And it could be also someone who is coming up for retirement or has just retired and has realised there's not quite enough in their pension pot, so they need to do something based around their knowledge. And this is the key thing. All of these people, the way we want to help people, and what this podcast is about helping people realise the knowledge they've built up in their minds over the 15, 20, 25, 30 years of work that they take for granted. Mm-hmm. But people out there can benefit from. Okay? And it's how you realise what parts of your knowledge you can commercialise, how you can package it, and how you can present it to someone who you can help and monetize it as a result. Okay? So that is from my side who we're talking to, but there is a second side of people that I know you want to talk about, which, well, go ahead, just, you know.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the second side of people that I am accustomed to talking to all day, every day, are obviously the self-employed, the tradesmen, the small business owners, especially the small business owners, as it is probably never been as hard now to be a small business owner as it ever has been, because of obviously the climate that we're in. You know, I'm not going to get into the government and all that sort of stuff. That's not one of these podcasts, but you know, it's never been as hard as it possibly could be to run a small business today. So it's, you know, I come from a background of having my own small business, which was a cleaning business that I ran for 15 years, which, you know, was certainly no easy street. And it took a long time to get it up and running and off the ground. You know, I started with nothing. I had no money in the bank. I started by emptying out the bottom cupboard of my kitchen, putting it in a bucket, shoving it in the back of my car and going around and cleaning someone's house or cleaning their windows. You know, I had the the most basic equipment you could get. And, you know, it took about 14, 15 months before I first started seeing any profit from that business. Because when you're growing anything, you've got to reinvest that money that you're earning. So every job that I got paid for more chemicals. It paid for, you know, insurances. It paid for like damage waivers and all that sort of stuff that not a lot of people realise you've got to have. And, you know, it paid for the fact that, you know, being self-employed again, from being made redundant from roofing, where I was actually employed, which is very rare to be employed as a roofer for a big company, which happened to be the biggest company in the country at the time, to being made redundant, going bankrupt, to getting a, you know, scratching around for, well, from the end of 2009 till around August, September of 2010, I basically scratched around for work. I didn't have any full-time income. It was just like odd jobs for friends and family. It was bits and pieces here and there. It wasn't anything that I could put, like earned money out throughout the week.
Yeah.
And I got a job working in a sheet metal factory, which happened to be owned by the very company that made me redundant in the first place. Was it was just ridiculous, you know. And I worked there from, I think it was the end of August till end of August 2010 to January of 2011, and I hated every single second of it. I hated every day going into that warehouse, knowing full well that my employers were the very same people that had absolutely rinsed us and made us redundant because of backhanders, and that's a different story. To then handing in my notice on January the 3rd or 4th, whenever we went back after Christmas, for 2 weeks. And then on my 3rd week, I flew to Australia and pissed off to Australia for 3 weeks to go and see the in-laws. And when I came back with nothing. You know, I came back bankrupt. I had no money. And that's where I started my cleaning business. And from going all the way back to when I first started in the tradesman industry, which was started off as being a plasterer, I learned, you know, from my governor as a plasterer, I learned how he ran his business. I then worked for a massive multi-million pound company for roofing. Then I realised what sort of happens in the corporate world of the tradesman industry, to then having to take all that information and start building my own cleaning business from scratch. And, you know, it put me in massive good stead to what I didn't realise is the things that I'd already previously learnt from previous employers. I took what I knew knowledge-wise and started building my cleaning business step by step. But, you know, by no means was it easy. You know, it's like one day you get 2 jobs and you get a phone call of asking for a quote or something like that. It's like the best day you'll ever have as a small business owner is getting that first quote come through. I mean, now it's a text message, it's a message on Facebook, whatever. You know,
the quote's nice, mate, but payday at the end of the job's probably a little bit better, to be fair. Actually, if the customer's happy.
Yeah, actually getting that, I'll have you. Yeah, please come clean my house next Tuesday.
Yeah, it's almost like the validation that you know what you're doing and you present yourself well and people are up for it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sort of, you underestimate just how massive that win is, but your wins never last very long. So once you then get that first job and you're so excited and you're getting paid and all that sort of stuff, you then realise, right, shit, okay, hang on a minute, where's the rest of the jobs coming from then? So you then have to double down again. You then have to make sure that your voice is out there, your name's out there, you're doing a decent job. That's what, you know, in episode 1, we discussed imposter syndrome. That's when that then starts kicking in. Am I doing a good job? Why is no one phoning me? You know, all those thoughts and doubts and everything that comes into it. But you've literally just got to put your blinkers on and sound it out. And you have to keep pushing through, because anybody that starts a business, a venture, or working online, or whatever side hustle you've got, whatever it might be, you're learning something brand new. Around the 3-week mark is when reality kicks in. I see so many people trying to learn how to do a side hustle, no matter what it is. and they get to the third week of, they start what we discussed before in episode 1. They start up here on a trajectory of upwards of excitement, and I'm learning something new. I'm going to be earning all this money.
The valley of doom.
And they get into the
Or
valley
despair.
The valley of despair. Yeah, they drop into the dip because they get to that 3-week mark of they've learnt, in theory, what they perceive to be the knowledge, the course, the information, whatever it is, have given them the information. And then they realise, shit, I've actually got to do something with this now. I've got to take everything that I've just learned. I've got to put it on paper. I've either got to create content about it. I've got to write emails about it. I've got to go and make some cold calling, which is, in this country, it's probably one of the worst things you can possibly do. But that's when everyone then starts to judder a little bit. And that's where you see the majority of people fall off the cliff. They just quit. They give up. They go back to working corporate, going back on site, going back to the job that they absolutely hate, but because it's an easy way out. If there's an excuse for the solution, they'll take the excuse because it doesn't stop you from putting out the risk of you failing.
I get it. It's the comfy chair, mate, and that's what it is. It's always the default for your own subconscious is to take you back to the comfort zone where there's no risk. It's the easy chair, and that's why people give up so quickly, or people don't even start for the fear of failure. Do you know what I mean? And that's something definitely that we're going to help people with in future episodes. So just to take you on, because obviously we're talking about your background and how you've reinvented yourself probably 2-3 times over your career. Got a massive amount of experience, as you've said, by learning on the job from your bosses, learning different trades. I know you've been a roofer, I know you've been a plasterer, I know you've done other jobs, to being bankrupt, I think twice, to then setting up your own business down on the South Coast. And that is the biggest learning curve, as you said, because it's not just about going out and selling yourself and your services. It's about making sure you've got everything in the background set up, your van, your insurances, to make sure you're all good. You've got to do your own self-assessment. That puts a lot of people off. You've got, you're putting quotes that I've had one this year, that I quoted for in January. Job dropped in June, and I'm like, and they still want the same price with everything going up. All this sort of stuff. People not paying you. You turn up, people have double booked you, or other trades have let you down, so you can't go in. So there's all this experience. What made you pivot into what you're doing now? Explain a little bit about that and how what you're doing now relates into this podcast coming into be and what we're going to try and do with this podcast.
Right, okay. So after, I would say probably, 2020 was a very, very tough time for literally everybody, especially small business owners. My cleaning company had been going about 2020, so I've probably been going around 7-8 years maybe. Maybe a bit, I can't work out my maths, but yeah, so COVID obviously happened, everyone shut down. I lost like 80% of my client base throughout COVID because everything was shut. My main contracts were pubs, clubs, wedding venues, and obviously people's houses, hospitality. Yeah. So, and obviously people's houses. So I couldn't go into people's houses. I couldn't go into any of the pubs or clubs or wedding venues because they were all shut. That only left me really with working outside on my own, cleaning windows, which was, I didn't have that many window cleans as around. And the abuse that I received from the general public by cleaning someone's windows was something that I'd never imagined would happen, but it was a massive reality shock as well at the same time, because I was following the rules. I was self-isolating. I wasn't working anywhere near anybody. I was outside. I clean windows with water-fed poles. I'm not even touching their house. And there's people in the neighbours and things spitting out their windows at me and things like that during COVID. And it's like, you're having a go at me for apparently trying to spread COVID and you're spitting at me. So where's the logic in that then, you bunch of fuckwits? But anyway, so after COVID, the first COVID lockdown, I had to rebuild that 80% loss, which is what I did. And then we then got locked down again from December till April of 2021, which again, I then had to rebuild my cleaning business again from April then onwards. So
Yeah.
from 2021 till 2023, I was falling out of love with it every day. I was losing. I was full of rage. I was angry all day, every day. I didn't like doing what I was doing. And, I was getting older, the age things, tick over into 40 and you think, okay, in the 40s now, it's a bit different. You get
Yeah.
locked down for like your first year and a half being 40. So that changes things as well. And
Yeah.
then come 42, 43, I'm starting to think, you know what? I'm done working 7 days a week. I want weekends. I want to do what everybody else does. I want to do what my mates did. They worked Monday to Friday, clocked off at 5 o'clock, don't have to worry about it till Monday. I was getting up at 4 a.m, Saturdays, Sundays, Boxing Days, New Year's Days, the lot. And I wanted my weekends back. So I started looking online, as you would do, because there was a massive explosion on social media about people working online and all that sort of stuff, being recession proof as well from the 2008 dumping that we had, which in theory got me made redundant in the first place.
Low overheads, no overheads really on any of it as well.
No, exactly. It's very, very low start-up, very, very low, no overheads whatsoever to start with anyway. So I started looking. So, I looked at Amazon FBA. My mother-in-law has got an online Amazon business where she sells candles, and that boomed through lockdown. They went from like turning over, say, 30 grand a year to generating 130 grand a year in the space of 7 months. Online business. And I thought, it's got, but how can it be that easy? So I started looking at Amazon FBA.
If only it was though.
If only it was that easy. So I started looking at Amazon FBA, but I didn't realise then you've then got to find a product. So you've got to do research on Amazon of a product that is selling well but not being sold by a lot, then sourcing the materials, sourcing the merchant, shipping it, picking, packing and shipping it from here, discrepancies, chargebacks, people trying to get one over on you.
Yeah.
And, I gave up. So I gave up doing that. I then looked into, writing online books to sell on Amazon KDP. I looked at crypto, Forex trading. I tried for 4 days. I invested £1,000. I made 75 grand in 48 hours and I lost it all the very next day. So in 3 days, I'd made 75 grand and lost it all and gave up with that. Print on demand and drop shipping and all the sort of stuff that in theory you need to be taught how to do it. And me in my anger was thinking, no, you know what? I'm going to do it on my own. I don't need anyone else. I've run a cleaning business for 13 years on my own. I don't need no help. And how wrong was I? So, I managed to try and fail at about 8 or 9 different things before I started, looking into digital marketing. And then, there's a lot of people that will watch this podcast and go, oh, digital marketing, and roll their eyes because they've seen videos and all that sort of stuff. But they underestimate the size of the industry. It's one of the biggest industries on the face of the planet. So
I just want to interject there, mate, because just before anyone gets turned off by this, we're not here to talk about digital marketing. And actually the term digital marketing, and I think we can both agree on this, right, is misrepresented. And this is why I want to make this point. Digital marketing is a subject heading, right? It's a set of skills that you can learn that you then use in other areas to promote your business, right? That's what digital marketing is. So people say the digital marketing industry, really what most people are when you see all this stuff online, they are affiliate marketers. And because they're buying into someone else's product and then they're representing that product and they're getting paid a commission on it. That's affiliate marketing. That's not digital marketing. And the terminology, I think, is very misleading within that industry. Either way, it's something we will touch on. Yeah. It has been. Yeah. Before it's been hijacked because actually, let's not go into this, and I'm going to keep this in.
No.
But let's not go down this rabbit hole because there's a lot of truths and untruths about it. And that's not what this podcast is about, because what the podcast is about is helping people build their own business from their own knowledge. It's not about going into digital marketing. What I will say though is once you've realized what your skills are, you may need to use some of those digital marketing skills and
Absolutely.
methods and techniques to help you in your business. That's where we're coming from here. We're not here to sell courses or any of that on this, you know, or push people down that road. But there are certainly within building your knowledge to set your own business up, to promote your own knowledge that you've built over 15 years. There are techniques that can help you with that, and we can help with that because of what you're doing now. And there's nothing wrong with, you know, I mean, you've got multiple streams of income now, so you're not a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
And do you want to touch on them?
Yeah, I can do. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, after in theory starting to learn how to utilize online skills by just taking a couple of courses, basically, where most people fail is, like I said, after 3 weeks of learning something new, they fall off. So
What were those skills, mate? Just to interject. Sorry to interject again, but just to you didn't deliberately gloss over those. But what were those skills you learned? The basic skills that can learn in any business.
What on as in? Yeah, okay. So yeah, basic skills. I mean, obviously, you have to first and foremost, it's your mindset has to be 95% and your action is 5%. Because if you get it around the other way round, where you think you've got to build everything and then you can switch off and not do it, and you know it will happen, blah blah, it will fail. So your mindset has to be like, you have to be so committed to your journey of learning how to do something different that nothing will stop you. So, you know, learning skills about how to hold yourself accountable. You know, get up every day for yourself. You're not getting up for anybody else. You're getting up for yourself. Hold yourself accountable. The determination and the confidence will come from when you start actually building something of your own. You know, learning how to utilize social media is massive beyond anybody can even contemplate or think about. Everyone knows what YouTube's like. You know, everybody sees the scale of it, but no one sees the monetization behind it, because 95% of the globe are consumers and 5% are creators. The creators on YouTube alone, out of the ad spend, are, you know, I think YouTube's ad spend for a year is like $60 billion. So they pay their creators a slice of that money. So the skills to learn how to utilize social media, how to create content, how to build relationships is probably one of the most important things you'll ever do. Be analog, talk to people, show your face on camera, or, you know, when you call someone for a one-to-one, do it over a video call. It builds trust so much quicker than actually by being present than it is by hiding behind a screen. So building relationships, learning how to talk to people, learning how to, you know, you can be professional and friendly at the same time. You know, you've got to learn how to build your barriers, you set your boundaries, your non-negotiables. Once you learn those sort of bits and pieces, you can pretty much put anything that's an idea in your head, you can then start to run with it. So if you've got an idea in your head, sorry mate, I was just you can then turn it into a guide, turn it into an ebook, turn it into a webinar, turn it into a lesson, turn it into, dare I say, a course. But you can teach people what's inside your head. Your knowledge is worth so much more than you ever think of it. And we're so indoctrinated from an early age thinking that we need to go to school, we need to go to college, you need to go and get A levels, you need to go to university, you need to get a degree to go and get a better job. And if you look at the stats, that's, you know, I'm going back to the 80s and the 90s, I'm going back in time. But, you know, today, I think the stats are 75,000 students that will leave university today. I think it's like 1% of them will get a job. And that's a job. That's not anything else. It's a terrible stat. But I suppose the skills are, you know, behind the scenes. You don't see the skills. Everything is behind the scenes.
With that in mind, you've mentioned, you know, obviously going out there promoting your business, but I mean, I've done the same education as you on both the education platforms that we've been on, and what I've got from it is all of that, but also, and this is a big mistake for many people, even if they've been around their own business. I mean, I've seen so many tradies, for instance, who go out there, price a job on a day rate. They don't put a margin on top. They're paying themselves a wage, but they're running a business. They're not putting a margin on for their business. Basic business shit, basically. So the other thing that I've got from these educations are the putting the foundations in place first. You know, not just getting up and running, having realistic expectations that it's not going to happen overnight. Learning, this is something we're going to come on to next podcast. I can't wait, actually. Is like, what's your fucking number? What's your fucking number? So, you know, if you've got an idea that you need to earn a certain amount of money to do a certain thing that's going to wean you off, say, your job, or say, you know, get you out of debt, you've got a number. So you will start with that, you work out your why, and then you reverse engineer it back, right? So it teaches you, I learned that. And also, you know, doing your market research, because you could have the best fucking idea in the world. But if there's no one interested in what you're trying to sell, you ain't going to be successful. So it's all of that good stuff as well beneath it.
Yeah, you can't build a house on sand, can you? So
no, you're setting yourself up to fail from day one,
exactly.
aren't you? So it's really interesting. So now obviously you're out there, you're putting yourself out there. I know you go live every day, and you help people, you mentor people. You've got your own community out there. You've got your own products now. You're still an affiliate for other products, and that's basically where you've got to in now. And obviously, we want to go out and try and get the message out there to
I mean, the thing is,
other people.
As we touched on earlier on, there's a big shortfall in information for people our generation. The big shortfall for Generation X is we're too old. We're too old to learn something new, because all they see is kids dancing on camera and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, the majority of people that I talk to that are Gen X and above that have online businesses or work online have like 10x their business, because they've utilized AI, they've utilized social media, they've started taking on futuristic skills, so to speak. And the shortfall between people in corporate and obviously tradesmen as well is there's no one to tell them that they've got so much information in their head that they can turn it into an income. And that's what, in theory, this podcast is going to be for, or it will be for, is to get the message out to everyone that's from 45 plus or 40 plus, that you've got something inside your head that's worth more money than you can ever be paid for. You've just got to learn how to package it right, or learn how to do certain things. And this is what we're going to be doing in the future for people that want to come on board, you know, consulting them and training them and giving them the right mindset, and, you know, showing the foundations, finding out your what, your why, and your how, and all that sort of. Because once you get the bait, like you said a minute ago, once you build those foundations and they're solid, you can build literally anything from those foundations, and it's the sky's the limit.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're if you're reaching for the stars and you miss, you still reach the top of the sky. So in theory, Mr. Harrison, can you please explain to the viewers your background?
Yeah, of course I can, mate. So obviously, you might have guessed from me talking to you just then about certain things with tradies and quotes and that. That's currently what I'm doing since COVID. So I work backwards. Yeah, I retrained as a tiler back in 2018 because I had investment properties when I was married, and I was doing them up, and I thought I need to learn a trade that I can actually do myself and whatever. And so I wanted to do that. I'm really glad I did, because I was working as a sales consultant in the role of a sales director for a UK company that was bringing a license over for a jewellery brand from Denmark. And when COVID hit, we would literally had launched the brand after 18 months work into the UK. We'd launched it, so we'd sourced the product, we'd done the licensing deal, we'd got the range sorted out, we knew our demographic, we got a permission to do our own version of the catalogue because our demographic was different from Denmark. I'd recruited one of my former reps from when I worked for Swarovski, which is, I'll tell you about in a minute. And we were out there, and we'd been out there on the road for 3 weeks seeing, you know, independent jewellery stores, got a good reaction, and then all the stores closed. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, here we go. And that was it. So, you know, the guy that I was working sort of four, who used to be one of my biggest distributors in Europe when I was at Schwarzschild. We tried to tick things along, and because there was so much uncertainty with lockdowns and when things were going to open, and the poor bloody retailers were trying to sell stock online, but their stock was becoming old if it was seasonal, and they had no income, and all the rents were going up, and it was just a nightmare, mate. Where the landlords were struggling as well, and it was a nightmare. And long story short, we had to part ways because it was just not financially viable. And then, as I say, trying to apply for jobs, I don't know how many hundred jobs I tried to apply for. And anyone who's tried to apply through LinkedIn or Indeed or any of these sites, the algorithms and you get kicked out sometimes before you get in front of the decision makers or even the recruiters. You know what I mean? So it can be a little bit depressing. So thank God in COVID. Because I'd done a few tiling jobs anyway, which were paid for, I managed to get 2 or 3 jobs on houses that were vacant. The work was being done before the people moved in, so I could get in there. I didn't get spat on like you because I was on my own. I camped out in Swaffham in a bungalow that was being done up, and I was the only tradie in there for 3 weeks. I was living out of a portable barbecue for 2 weeks, like cooking me food on it, having a beer in the evening in the middle of bloody Norfolk. So I did all that. But prior to that, my background is corporate. It's 25 years. I started in 1992, and I worked for some big companies, mainly 3 major brands. So Kickers for 10 years back in the 90s. Anyone who's Gen X will remember Kickers for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Me. And when we started, I was doing cash in hand work because I've been made redundant from the city, and I got a cash in hand job moving furniture around the Pentland Centre because it was the Pentland Group I worked for. We had the license. They owned brands like Speedo, Berghaus, Mitre. At the time they had Pony. Do you remember that from the cricket?
Yeah.
And Brazier Boot, Red or Dead came aboard, and all of that. And we were moving furniture, me and a mate, for cash in hand while they redecorated all the sales offices and the showrooms in this tower block. And I managed, someone turned around and I got chatting to the sales office manager in Kickers, and she said, "Are you computer literate?" Well, 92, we didn't have Word, we didn't have dial-up, it was done terminal. That's what she meant. Can I type in orders? Yeah, I can. Got maternity cover, do you want in? And that was the start of it, mate. I went in and I learned about footwear. Had the best managing director in my life, very blunt, scared the living shit out of you, but he was just straight, and I learned so much from him. And I a bit like you on the sites, I fell in love with it. I wanted to know more, and I volunteered to go to trade shows at weekends, unpaid, all this to get it, because I just saw these reps who I looked after internally and these brand new company cars with the wired phones. And I thought they were the absolute nuts. And I thought, I want to do that. And then 3 years later, I got my chance. I did it, became sales manager there, 10 years. Then I had a holiday. Then I got fed up and I decided to bugger off to America. That's another story. But I fulfilled one of my childhood dreams. Lived out in Fort Lauderdale for 2 years, and I came back, worked for Oakley for 10 years. And as part of that, they had a brand new military, specialised military division with specific eyewear for military and footwear and all that. And they asked me to set that up. I was in the Royal Air Force volunteer reserves at the time, so I could get in and out with my pass and everything. So I set that up for them and dealt with customers like John Lewis and the biggies. And then I set my own footwear business up. I was an agent there. My contract never got renewed in the end. I set my own footwear business up, which is the biggest learning curve in my life. It went on for 3 years. I made some huge errors, which I hope people that are watching this are going to relate to. But your choice of business partner, be very, very fucking careful. Wrong choice of business partner. Did what I thought was my due diligence, but was lied to, and that came out in the end. But I did also learn how to get investment into the business. So I managed to get $100,000 of investment into the business with two brothers. And I learned to take a product from design through the whole manufacturing process, got it made out of specialised military footwear, got it made out. We vetted all the, the Far East factories. That's another learning curve because some of them are not so...
language barrier.
Well, it's not just a language barrier, it's who they use for labour. You've got to be very careful, because we were having none of that. Especially dealing with governments, you must be whiter than white, making sure
Yeah.
they're not using child labour and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And going out there and watching your first boot. It's a bit like you saying you're getting your first invoice.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember my first sale at Kickers, and I was like, unbelievable. And seeing my own product come off the production run and holding it in the box that I'd had designed, and that's a special feeling, mate.
Oh, it blows you away, doesn't it? When you get something it's yours, isn't it? It's you've designed it, you've taken, it's your time that you spent, and to have it physically in your hand as well, it's like gold dust, isn't it? Basically,
exactly. And then learning things about factoring, and financing and all this sort of stuff. So that was huge. And then unfortunately that went under. We just did not have the cash flow to keep producing samples for all the tenders that we were in for military, and the tenders started getting pulled when Cameron came in. And I mean, potentially we were sitting on over £5.5 million worth of deals, and none of them landed because they were delayed or whatever. And you've got to keep the lights on. You've got to keep them. You've got to feed the machine, and we couldn't do it. So you're absolutely gutted. But luckily, I went back into working for a Swarovski-owned brand. It wasn't Swarovski itself, it was a sub-brand, and I was the European sales manager there. So that was a whole new set of skills again. I'd already led sales teams, but I was actually responsible for Europe. So that was setting up new routes to market in Europe, and new distribution channels, new distributors, which were that is hard work, because of the ways we all work differently in Europe and the expectations and stuff. Some of those deals were quite complex to negotiate. Working in an environment where I was basically living in Newcastle most of the time. And none of us, I was a part of a leadership team of 4 with no managing director. So we were all there collectively, each of our departments, sales, marketing, ops and finance, and we all reported into North America where there was a CEO. So we had our bosses and then us. It's a very, very weird setup because you had sort of autonomy, but you couldn't make big decisions. And ultimately, I decided to get out there because of exactly what a lot of corporate people are feeling at the moment out there, I'm sure, which is where what you're saying is right. Your gut is telling you what you're saying to your bosses is right. They are not listening. You can see what's going to happen to the business, which I could. It was going to fold like a, what do you say, a flan in a cupboard?
A flan in a cupboard, yeah.
Yeah, it was going to fold like a flan in a cupboard. And I could see it. And when you get to a stage when you're in corporate where, particularly if you're running a department and you've got employees that are still in touch with them all, they're a great bunch, where you respect them and you want to look after them and you can't make a positive difference, it's time to get out.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I did. And then I became a sales consultant and so on and so forth after COVID. So I've got a lot of experience in terms of, that side of things. And hopefully, if there are people out there that are feeling undervalued, not listened to, you're the person in corporate who is blamed when things don't go right, but also you're the person that they come to sort their shit out. Yeah?
Yep.
When you see other people coming up fast-tracked, earning the same as you without the experience, and then when they're drowning because they haven't got the experience, through no fault of their own, by the way, no fault of their own, the management still come to you when you're on the same pay packet. They're not paying for your experience. And this is the discrepancy between when you start a job, you're probably paid, I put a post out on this once, you're probably paid what you're worth. But when you get to 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, 15 years, you've been paid what? If you're lucky, 2% increase, right? But exponentially, your knowledge is compounding and is worth so much more. But because it becomes natural to us, it's natural to us to give out advice and help people. And we are team players and we try and go and help people out. We don't put a value on that. But that value,
you think it's a job.
that value outside of the room that you're sitting in that office building is worth so much more. You've outgrown your wage. You've outgrown. Oh, yeah. So if you can then turn that into either what you're saying, where you go and, you go online and you do that stuff, or you build a consultancy or a coaching side of things to help mentor sales teams, or you go into businesses and get paid for your knowledge. So you're still solving the same problems you solve every day for your low wage. You can go in to the businesses and sort their shit out, but get paid properly for it.
You could probably charge a month's wage for 1 day's work for consulting or being a freelancer for a company. You can literally walk into a sales division that aren't doing particularly well on a big company and go, right, okay, in the next 8 hours, we're going to do all of this and I'm going to charge you that. And the company will pay you for it. And that's, you've made a month's wage in a day. Because, as you just said, if you're lucky, you're going to get 2% rise. And if you're good at your job in corporate, I have mates that work in corporate, and this is the problem they're going through now, because they're now approaching 50 in their 50s. They've become so good at their job that they get other people's jobs given to them and they don't get paid any more money for it. So they're doing double the amount of workload for the same wage, and that rise that they get is not keeping up, for starters, with obviously inflation. But at the same time, if they was to go, that's why a lot of people will say, if you're going to stay in a career of corporate jobs or whatever, leave a job every 2 to 3 years, because when you leave and go to a different job, your chances are you'll get paid slightly more.
Well, I would say that, AJ, but when you're in your 40s,
oh yeah, it's a lot harder to bounce.
You're getting up the chain. So there's less jobs.
Yeah.
And if you want, then, even with your knowledge, you try and change. When you get to a certain age, they know they got to pay you for it, and they will take someone with slightly less experience and not pay them as much. And that's the problem. You get to an age at some point where there is a crossover, where if you left a job, you're going to find it much harder to get back into a new job. And I'm sure there's people watching this out there now, sitting in their corporate job going, I wish the hell I could get out of this. But they are too worried that if they actually bite the bullet, quit their job, start applying and not and getting hit with the ageism stuff that I did, right? You suddenly your dreams are ripped away from you. You're like, oh, this is me now. This is me till retirement, because I can't get another job. Or if you're brave enough to jump, you can't get a job, and then you're in the shit. So I think there's so many people out there in that void of despair.
Yeah.
Who can't get it out. And that's enough about me. But that leads us really into what we're going to be doing over the next 4 weeks, okay? Because we're going to do this in chunks. We're going to do it in bite-size episodes.
Well, series, aren't they? They're going to be like mini series.
Yeah, and I think for the next 4 weeks, and tell me if I'm getting this wrong, where we've talked, is the next 4 weeks is basically doing the absolute first 4 steps.
The foundation.
Which we've already talked about, which is, what's your fucking number? What's your why? And various other things after that. I won't spoil it now. But I think that's where we need to go. And hopefully we've explained in this episode who we are, what we're about, and everything else. What I'd love to hear, I mean, we're going to have low numbers. Let's be honest. This is a brand new podcast. We're learning as we go. And the actual fact, we will do some behind the scenes and show you our fuck ups.
It's taken us 2 days to get this far.
I know. You should. I mean, even this morning, we couldn't get a camera working. I mean, 2 blokes, 2 grown men can't get a camera linked up. It's insane. But we will share the warts and all as we go along, and hopefully you'll see the human side to us, that we're not perfect, but we have made you've made the jump. I'm making the jump to get out of that area of discontent, despair, and whatever, and realizing that you're never too old to fulfill your dreams. There's always hope. There's always hope. It is about mindset. You're right.
Yeah.
Which you're very good at.
I mean, modern medicine is making people live a lot longer now anyway. So it's a case of, there's one thing that's guaranteed, is if you do not try, everything stays the same. So if if you don't try and do something that you want to do or want to learn or want to build or whatever it is, everything's going to stay the same. The idea is, don't be doing the same shit this time next year if you want to get out and do something different.
And the feeling also, I can sort of relate to the feeling. I'm getting it. You've had it. Is where you actually get to something like starting this podcast. We talked about it. We went, we're doing it, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as you do it, the feeling of actually we're fucking doing this.
Reality kicks in.
I mean, this ain't comfy. This is not a comfy thing doing this. we're out of our comfort zone, but we're doing it, and that's the only way you'll change. You
Yeah.
get out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Not being comfortable means you're growing. And I don't want to keep coming out with these what I call wank words, these phrases, the corporate speak. But it is it is. It's the only way that you can grow, the only way you can move forward. I've got you to thank for that, actually, because you do kick my ass subtly in the background and make me think about things. But
who, me?
Yes, AJ, just you. So the next episode will be out in a week's time, and basically it will be called
What's your fucking number?
What's your fucking number?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you have to do that again.
Okay, let's do that. See, this is all real. Next week, a new episode will be out this time next week, and it's going to be entitled
What's your fucking number?
There we are. So, in the meantime, it'd be really good if you can like, follow, share. We're also on
subscribe.
socials. We're on Insta.
Press the little subscribe button wherever it is on the screen.
Yeah, we're on Insta, Facebook. We're not going down the TikTok route.
No.
And yeah, if you want to ask any questions, please drop stuff in the comments. If you can relate to this, if you want to know other ways that we can help you other than just talking on a podcast, if you want one-to-one calls with AJ, he does coaching calls, or if you want to ask me any questions, if you're from a corporate background, feel free to drop any comments in the comments below, and we'll get back to you. And 9 times out of 10, when these go live, we will be in the comments live as well. So as you're watching, we should be in there as well. So anything else to add, my friend?
No, not really. I think it's just a case of, keep your eyes peeled, subscribe so you get notifications. Press the little bell that's in one of the corners so you get notified when we release a short or when we release the new video every week. So you can keep up to date with our updates and things like that. And as Ian said there, just don't hesitate to ask any questions. You know, we're here to help anybody else out that is, looking for their escape plan. I know it sounds a bit cheesy, and I don't mean it to, but that's,
mate,
that's
it sounds
what
like
we're at.
Your escape, mate. That makes it sound like they're all in a gimp room looking for their escape plan. It's like, it's not right. You'll get to know our humour as well. I know. Anyway, new theme tune, just as an outro, mate. I'll catch up with you soon, and here's our new outro.
Right,
See you later, mate.
Ta-ra, mate.
See ya.